The alarm chimed at 0500 hours, and Hana Choi was already awake. She had been staring at the ceiling of her quarters for the past 20 minutes, listening to the hum of Station Veritas as it orbited the gas giant below. The artificial gravity in her room was set to 2G, the lowest the station could manage for human habitats. For her alien classmates, this would be crushing. For Hana, it felt almost light. She rolled out of bed and began her morning routine. 50 push-ups, then 100 sit-ups, followed by stretches that would make most species wince. Her muscles moved easily under Earth's remembered weight, even though she had been in space for 3 months now. The other cadets at the Galactic Naval Academy struggled to understand how she could exercise at all in such gravity. They didn't know what it meant to be born on a Class 12 death world. Earth, the word alone made most aliens nervous. A planet where the atmosphere could corrode metal, where the gravity crushed visitors, where apex predators hunted in packs, and the weather could kill in minutes. When humanity had achieved faster than light. Travel 20 years ago, the Galactic Coalition had been shocked. Primitive Deathworlders weren't supposed to reach the stars. They were supposed to die on their violent worlds, fighting their violent natures. Hana pulled on her academy uniform and checked her reflection. 19 Earth years old, black hair, tied back in a regulation bun, dark eyes that her instructor said were too intense. She looked normal enough by human standards. But here, among 40,000 cadets from 200 different species, she was a monster. A walking reminder that sometimes evolution created things that shouldn't exist. The corridor outside her quarters was quiet at this hour. Station Veritas ran on a 26-hour cycle to accommodate the majority of species. Hana had learned to adapt just as she had adapted to everything else. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the gravity decreased gradually as she walked toward the main academy section. By the time she reached the central hub, it was down to 0.6 G, standard for most coalition species. She moved carefully now, remembering the first week when she had accidentally jumped too hard and nearly hit the ceiling. The other cadets had scattered like she was going to explode. Maybe to them, she was always on the verge of exploding. A Deathworlder barely contained, the cafeteria was starting to fill with early risers. Hana grabbed her meal, a carefully balanced mix of proteins and nutrients that Earth species needed, and looked for a place to sit. The usual seats near the windows were taken by a group of Vexlar cadets, insectoid beings with chitinous armor and compound eyes. Their leader, Kreese, saw her looking and deliberately turned his back. Hana sat alone at a table in the corner. She had gotten used to it. "Mind if I join you?" A voice asked in perfect English. Yuna Park stood there with her own tray, smiling. She was the only other human in Hana's year, and sometimes Hana thought Yuna was the only thing keeping her sane. "Please," Hana said, grateful for the company. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment before Yuna spoke again. "I heard Instructor Velinara praised your tactical analysis yesterday. Top marks in the class. 5th time this month," Hana said quietly. "And still, half the class thinks I cheated." "They're afraid," Yuna said. "You're smarter than them, faster than them, stronger than them. That's terrifying to species who've never had to fight for survival." Hana pushed her food around her plate. "I didn't ask to be born on Earth. I didn't ask to be a Deathworlder. No, but you're here anyway. First human cadet accepted into the Galactic Naval Academy. That means something." It meant she carried the weight of her entire species on her shoulders. Every move she made, every word she spoke, every test she took was being watched and judged. If she failed, humanity failed. If she succeeded too well, she proved their worst fears about violent primitives taking over. After breakfast, Hana headed to her first class, Advanced Tactical Simulations. The classroom was a large dome filled with holographic projectors. 20 cadets from various species sat at individual stations. Hana took her usual spot at the back, away from the clusters of friends and study groups she wasn't part of. Instructor. Valinara entered, her crystalline body refracting the light into rainbow patterns. She was one of the few instructors who treated Hana fairly, judging her on merit rather than origin. Today we will simulate a rescue operation on a high-gravity world, Valinara announced. Gravity will be set to 0, 9G. Teams of 4. Begin. Hana was assigned to a team with 3 cadets who immediately protested. A Peltari named Veng spoke up. Instructor, with respect, the human will have an unfair advantage in high gravity. Valinara's response was cold. In the field, you will work with many species. Learn to adapt or fail. The 3 cadets shot Hana dark looks as they entered the simulation pod. The scenario began. A civilian transport had crashed on a mining colony. Survivors needed evacuation before a storm hit. The simulation was running at 0, 9G, close to Earth normal. Hana moved through it easily while her teammates struggled. She could see the best path, calculate the timing, understand the physics in a way that came naturally to someone raised under crushing weight. We should take the eastern route, Hana suggested. Faster extraction, minimal exposure. Veng ignored her. We follow standard procedure. Western approach. 20 minutes later, the storm caught them. 2 virtual civilians died. The simulation ended with a failing grade. Veng immediately blamed Hana. She didn't follow orders. I gave a better tactical option, Hana said calmly. You think you're smarter than everyone because you're a Deathworlder, Veng sneered. But you're just a violent, primitive playing soldier. The words stung because Hana had heard them before. From politicians on the news, from anonymous messages, from the looks in the corridors. She wanted to respond, to defend herself, but she knew anything she said would be twisted into proof of human aggression. Instructor Valinara reviewed the simulation data. Cadet Hana's route had an 89% success probability. The chosen route had 34%. You failed because you let prejudice override logic. She dismissed the class, but the damage was done. At lunch, Hana sat alone again. Yuna was in a different class rotation. She noticed Kreese and his friends watching her from across the cafeteria. With him were Veng from her simulation class, another Peltari named Daro, and a Talanier named Sora. They were talking and glancing her way, making no effort to hide their contempt. Hana finished her meal and left quickly. She had 3 more classes, then combat training, then study time. The academy schedule was brutal, designed to push cadets to their limits. For most species, it was barely manageable. For Hana, raised on a world that tried to kill everything on it, it was just another day. That evening, she met with Tae Lim, a second-year human cadet who had taken her under his wing. They practiced in one of the smaller gyms, working through hand-to-hand combat techniques. Tae was good, trained in multiple earth martial arts, and he didn't hold back with Hana. You're getting better, he said after she successfully countered his attack. But you're still too tense. You're always waiting for the next insult, the next challenge. Because they keep coming, Hana said, breathing hard. I know. I've been here 2 years, and it doesn't really get easier. But you can't let them see it bothers you. Tae paused. There's something else. I've been hearing rumors. Some of the cadets from influential families are unhappy about humans being here. They think we got in through political pressure rather than merit. Let them think what they want. My scores speak for themselves. Hana, I'm serious. These aren't just words. I've heard them planning something. She stopped mid-stretch. Planning what? I don't know exactly. Just be careful. Don't go anywhere alone late at night. Don't give them any opportunity. Hana nodded, but inside she felt the familiar anger building. She had left Earth to prove humanity, belonged among the stars. Instead, she was constantly defending her right to exist. It wasn't supposed to be this way. That night, back in her quarters, Hana recorded a message to her family back on Earth. She told them about her classes, her scores, the view of the gas giant from the observation deck. She didn't tell them about the isolation, the hatred, the constant pressure. They had enough to worry about. Before bed, she checked her messages. One from Yuna asking if she wanted to study together tomorrow. One from Academy Administration about schedule changes. And one anonymous message that simply said, "Deathworlders don't belong here. Go back to your savage world." Hana deleted it and turned off the lights. Tomorrow would be another day of proving herself, another day of carrying humanity's reputation, another day of being alone among thousands. She closed her eyes and dreamed. Of Earth, where gravity felt right, and she wasn't a monster. She didn't know that in 3 days, everything would change. That she would face a test not of intelligence or skill, but of survival. That 12 seconds would define her future and humanity's place in the stars. But tonight, she was just a cadet trying to sleep. 3 days passed like normal. Classes, meals eaten alone, training sessions with Tay, and the constant weight of being watched. Hana kept her head down and her scores high. She ignored the whispers and the anonymous messages that kept appearing in her inbox. Yuna had warned her again that something was coming, but the station seemed calm. Too calm, maybe. On the third night, Hana stayed late at the Academy Gymnasium. It was one of the few places she felt truly comfortable, where she could push her body the way it was meant to be pushed. The gym was empty at 020 hours station time. Just her and the equipment. She ran through combat drills, practiced throws and holds. Worked on the techniques Tay had shown her by the time she finished. It was nearly 0230. She grabbed her bag and headed back toward the human quarters. The corridors were almost empty at this hour, lit by the dim blue night cycle lighting. Most species were asleep. The station felt peaceful in the quiet hours, less hostile somehow. Hana decided to take the supply corridor shortcut. It was a narrow passage used mainly by maintenance staff, but it cut 5 minutes off the walk back. She had used it dozens of times before without issue. The gravity here was transitional, slowly increasing from the standard 0, 6G, to the 1, 2G of the human section. She was halfway through when the lights went out. Total darkness. The emergency lighting should have kicked in immediately, but nothing happened. Hana stopped walking, her hand instinctively moving to the wall for reference. Something was wrong. Station protocols were too reliable for a simple power failure. Then she heard breathing. Not her own. Multiple sources surrounding her in the dark. Hana's eyes began to adjust. Another Deathworlder trait that other species found unsettling. Humans evolved as both predator and prey, and darkness was just another environment to survive. Shapes began to resolve in front of her. 4 figures spread out to block the corridor. "Hello, Deathworlder," a familiar voice said. Kreese, the Vexlar cadet, stepped forward, his insectoid form clicking softly. "Out late, aren't you?" Hana's heart rate increased, but her voice stayed calm. "The gym is open to all cadets." "I wasn't breaking any rules." "Rules," another voice laughed. "Veng, the Peltari from her tactical class. She talks about rules. Like she belongs here." 2 more shapes moved in the darkness. Daro, another Peltari, and Sora, the Talonier with wings folded against his back. All 4 from influential families. All 4 who had made their hatred of humans clear. "You've been cheating," Kreese said, moving closer. "Using performance enhancements. No primitive species could score that high naturally." "I don't cheat," Hana said. Her muscles were tensing, preparing. Part of her brain was already calculating distances, weak points, escape routes. The combat training was automatic now, running in the background of her thoughts. "We're going to teach you a lesson," Sora said from behind her. "About knowing your place. About understanding that Deathworlders don't belong among civilized species. They thought the darkness gave them an advantage. They thought 4 against 1 was overwhelming odds. They didn't understand what they were facing. Hana had been raised on a world where everything, from the weather to the wildlife, tried to kill you. Where humans survived not because they were the strongest or fastest, but because they refused to quit. Because they adapted and fought and endured." "Last chance to walk away," Hana said quietly. Kreese laughed. "Brave words for someone about to." Sora moved first, lunging from behind. It was the mistake that ended everything before it really began. Hana heard the whisper of movement, felt the displacement of air. Her body reacted before her conscious mind could process it. She pivoted on her left foot, dropping her bag. Her right hand came up and caught Sora's wing arm mid-strike. The Talonier was fast by his species standards, but to Hana's Deathworlder reflexes, it was like watching someone move through water. She used Sora's momentum against him, a technique from Earth's judo that worked on any species with a center of gravity. Pull, turn, redirect. Sora's hollow-boned body, designed for flight on a low-gravity world, slammed into the corridor wall with a sickening crack. He dropped instantly, unconscious. Wing fractured, head trauma. 3 seconds had passed. Kreese and Veng attacked together, trying to overwhelm her from the front. Kreese's chitinous claws reached for her throat, while Veng went low, attempting to sweep her legs. Good tactics against most opponents. Useless against someone who had trained in Earth's crushing gravity since childhood. Hana dropped into a crouch that would have torn muscles in most species. She was below Kreese's strike and under Vin's guard in an instant. Her leg swept out, catching Vin's knee joint. The Peltari S-amphibious body, adapted for water worlds with minimal gravity, couldn't handle the force. The joint dislocated with a wet pop, and Veng collapsed, screaming. As Veng fell, Hana was already rising. Her elbow drove upward into Kreese's thorax, right where the chitinous plates met. She had studied Vexlar anatomy in xenobiology class. She knew the weak points. The plate cracked under the impact, and Kreese staggered backward, his breathing apparatus damaged. 6 seconds total. Darrow finally understood the mistake they had made. His friends were down, injured, and the human hadn't even broken a sweat. He turned to run, but Hana's blood was up now. The ancient fight-or-flight response that had kept humanity alive through ice ages and plague and predators flooded her system. Adrenaline sharpened her senses, strengthened her muscles, focused her mind into diamond-hard clarity. This was what it meant to be a Deathworlder. This was what they feared. She covered the distance to Darrow in 2 bounds that would have been impossible in higher gravity. Her hand closed on his shoulder, and she put him in a compliance hold that Tay had taught her. Pressure on the circulatory nodes, cutting off oxygen to the brain. Darrow struggled for 3 seconds, his amphibious strength useless against the technique. Then he went limp. 12 seconds. 4 attackers down. Hana stood in the darkened corridor, breathing normally, heart rate already beginning to slow. She looked at the bodies around her and felt nothing but cold calculation. They had attacked her. They had threatened her. She had defended herself with exactly the amount of force necessary. The lights suddenly came back on, bright and harsh after the darkness. Hana raised her hands away from her body, a gesture of non-aggression. Station security would be here soon. The trauma sensors would have detected the injuries. She was right. Within 90 seconds, 2 security officers rounded the corner, weapons drawn. They stopped when they saw the scene. 4 unconscious cadets, 1 human standing calmly with her hands raised. They attacked me in the dark, Hana said simply. I defended myself. The security officers approached cautiously. One of them, a four-armed Korthan, scanned the fallen cadets with a medical device. His eyes widened as he read the results. We need medical teams immediately. Multiple serious injuries. The medical teams arrived with stretchers. As they loaded the unconscious cadets, the lead medic, a gentle species called the Frel, stared at Hana with something like fear. What did you do? I survived, Hana answered. The security team escorted her to a holding room while they investigated. Before she left, one of the officers checked the corridor security systems. The visual recording was disabled, he said. But we have audio. It confirms your statement. In the holding room, Hana sat alone and waited. She knew what was coming. Questions, investigations, tribunals. The attackers would claim she used excessive force. Their families would demand her expulsion. The anti-human factions would use this as proof that Deathworlders were too violent for civilized society. But she also knew the truth. She had been attacked in the dark by 4 cadets who thought they could hurt her without consequences. She had defended herself using the skills and abilities that evolution had given her. She had held back more than they would ever know. She could have killed them all in 6 seconds instead of 12. She could have caused injuries that no medical technology could repair. Instead, she had shown restraint, control, precision. The door opened, and Commander Thalrex entered. The massive Korthan officer studied her with his 4 eyes, his expression unreadable. The medical report is complete. Cadet Sora has a fractured wing and concussion. Cadet Kreese has a cracked thorax plate and internal bruising. Cadet Veng has a dislocated hip joint and spinal compression. Cadet Darrow has crush injuries and oxygen deprivation damage. Hana said nothing. All injuries are serious, but not life-threatening. Recovery time estimated at 3 to 6 weeks. Thalrex paused. The security recording confirms you were attacked. Evidence shows the environmental controls were tampered with using Cadet Kreese's access codes. We also have testimony from Cadet Una Park about threats made against you. Am I being charged? Hana asked. That depends on the tribunal. There will be an investigation. Thalrex leaned forward. Off the record, Cadet Hana, how long did the fight last? 12 seconds, sir. The commander's expression shifted, something that might have been respect. And you stopped at 12 seconds. You could have continued. I could have ended it in 6, Hana said quietly. I chose not to. Thalrex stood to leave and paused at the door. Your restraint may be the only thing that saves you from expulsion. Remember that in the days ahead, you are not just representing yourself. You are representing your entire species. After he left, Hana put her head in her hands. The weight of it all crashed down. She hadn't wanted this, hadn't wanted to prove their worst fears true. But what choice had she had? Let them hurt her prove humans weren't violent? Become a victim to make others comfortable? No, she had survived. That's what Deathworlders did. The news would spread quickly. Across the station, then the Coalition, then the galaxy. The human cadet who put 4 attackers in the infirmary in 12 seconds. Some would call her a hero. Most would call her a monster. But Hana knew the truth. She was neither. She was just a girl from Earth, trying to survive in a universe that had already decided what she was before giving her a chance to prove otherwise. The holding room became Hana's world for the next 72 hours. They called it protective custody, but it felt like a cell. White walls, a simple bed, basic facilities, and no communication with the outside. Meals arrived through a slot in the door. Security cameras watched her every movement. She was isolated, contained, like something dangerous that needed to be kept away from others. Hana used the time to exercise, to meditate, to prepare herself for what was coming. She knew the investigation was happening outside these walls. Evidence being gathered, statements being taken, political pressures being applied. 4 cadets from powerful families had been hospitalized by a human. The coalition would have to respond. On the second day, they allowed her one visitor. Yuna arrived with tears in her eyes and immediately hugged Hana tightly. "I'm so sorry. I should have warned you better. I should have done more. You did everything you could," Hana said. "This isn't your fault." Yuna pulled back, wiping her eyes. "It's chaos out there." The news spread across the galaxy within hours. Everyone's talking about it. There are protests on multiple worlds, some calling you a hero, others demanding Earth be expelled from the coalition. What are they saying happened? Everything. Some reports say you attacked them unprovoked. Others say you were defending yourself. The anti-human groups are using this as proof that Deathworlders are too dangerous. But there are also people supporting you, especially on high-gravity worlds. They're saying you had every right to defend yourself. Hannah sat on the bed, suddenly tired. "I just wanted to go to the academy, learn, prove humans could be part of something bigger." "You're carrying too much," Yuna said softly. "You're 19 years old. You shouldn't have to represent an entire species." But she did. That was the reality. Every human who left Earth carried that weight now. They were the first generation to walk among the stars, and everything they did would shape how humanity was seen for centuries to come. On the third day, Hana was finally brought before the tribunal. The chamber was massive, designed to accommodate many species. Commander Thalrex sat at the center, flanked by 4 other senior officers from different species. Behind them, observers filled the gallery, including news reporters from across the coalition. Hana stood alone in the center of the floor. No lawyer, no advocate. Humans were too new to the coalition to have established legal representation. She wore her cadet uniform, standing at attention, looking smaller than she felt. "Cadet Hana Choi," Commander Thalrex began, his voice echoing in the chamber. "You are here to answer for the injury sustained by 4 fellow cadets during an altercation 3 nights ago. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, sir. I acted in self-defense." The tribunal spent an hour reviewing evidence. Security recordings showed audio of the attack, confirming Hannah's account. The environmental tampering was traced directly to Kreese's access codes. Medical evidence showed she had been attacked from multiple angles. Yuna testified about the threats she had overheard, but then the families of the injured cadets presented their case. Expensive advocates argued that Hannah had used excessive force. They showed medical reports detailing the severity of the injuries. They brought in experts who testified about human physical capabilities, making Hannah sound like a weapon rather than a person. "The evidence shows," one advocate declared, "that humans possess strength and reflexes far beyond civilized species. Allowing them into our institutions is dangerous. This incident proves they cannot control their violent nature." During a recess, Tay managed to get a message to Hana. "Stay strong. You did nothing wrong." But his face looked worried. The political pressure was enormous. 4 influential families wanted blood, and Hannah's expulsion might be the price of peace. The investigation revealed more than just the attack. Instructor Velinara had discovered something troubling. She testified before the tribunal that she had found evidence of faculty involvement. Professor Dexuri, a senior instructor from the Zental species, had been secretly funding anti-human movements and had encouraged the 4 cadets to take action. The revelation shocked the chamber. Faculty corruption was rare in the academy, and the idea that a professor had encouraged students to attack another cadet was horrifying to most species. But for the human-hating factions, it didn't matter. They still blamed Hana for being too dangerous. Commander Thalrex called for order as arguments broke out in the gallery. This tribunal will make its decision based on evidence, not politics, he declared. We will recess for deliberation. While the tribunal deliberated, Hana was returned to her holding room. Hours passed. She tried not to think about what would happen if they expelled her. The shame of returning to Earth a failure. The blow to human coalition relations. The proof that maybe Deathworlders really didn't belong among the stars. A message appeared on her room's communication panel, encrypted from an unknown source. You've made enemies. Watch your back. Not all of us use cadets to do our work. Hannah stared at the message. Someone else was involved. Someone higher up. The conspiracy went deeper than 4 cadets and 1 corrupt professor. She reported the message to security, but there was no way to trace it. After 8 hours, she was brought back to the tribunal chamber. The gallery was packed now, with thousands watching via remote feed from across the galaxy. This wasn't just about Hana anymore. It was about humanity's place in the coalition. Commander Thalrex stood to deliver the verdict. The chamber fell silent. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, this tribunal has reached the following decisions. First, regarding Cadet Hana Choi. The evidence clearly shows she was attacked by 4 cadets in a premeditated assault. Environmental tampering, the choice of location, the hour of attack, all demonstrate planning and intent. Cadet Hana acted in self-defense and showed remarkable restraint given her capabilities. Hannah felt her knees weaken with relief. Therefore, Cadet Hana Choi is cleared of all wrongdoing and receives commendation for her restraint and adherence to Academy values in a crisis situation. Half the gallery erupted in cheers, the other half in angry protests. Second, Thalrex continued, his voice cutting through the noise, regarding the 4 attackers. Cadets Kreese, Veng, Darrow, and Sora are hereby expelled from the Academy for conspiracy, assault, environmental tampering, and conduct unbecoming of coalition officers. Their families' political influence will not protect them from the consequences of their actions. More shouting from the gallery. Security had to remove several protesters. Third, Professor Dexuri is terminated from his position and will face criminal charges for inciting violence and conspiracy. An investigation will be launched into any other faculty or staff who may have supported anti-human activities. Finally, this tribunal recognizes that this incident reveals serious problems in how we integrate new species into coalition institutions. Effective immediately, new protocols for species integration and anti-discrimination policies will be implemented academy-wide. All cadets and faculty will undergo mandatory training on species diversity and cooperation. Thalrex looked directly at Hana. Cadet Hana, you are restored to full cadet status and may return to your duties immediately. This tribunal apologizes for what you endured and commits to ensuring no cadet faces such discrimination again. The chamber erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted questions. Protesters tried to rush the floor. Security locked down the room. Hana stood in the center of it all, numb with shock and relief that she had been cleared, vindicated, but she could see the hatred in the eyes of those who opposed humanity. This wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. Later, back in her quarters, finally free, Hana found messages waiting. Hundreds of them. Threats and support in equal measure. News organizations requesting interviews. Political groups wanting to use her as a symbol. And one from Ambassador Kai Song, Earth's representative to the coalition. Cadet Hana, well done. You represented humanity with honor. But be careful. You've won a battle, but the war for acceptance continues. There are those who will never accept us, and they will not stop with failed attacks by cadets. Watch yourself. Hana looked out her window at the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning, carrying 8 billion humans who dreamed of the stars. She had wanted to prove they belonged here. Instead, she had proven that people feared them. Yuna and Tay came to her quarters that evening. They brought food and companionship, things Hana desperately needed. "You're famous now," Tay said. "The human who survived. The Deathworlder who showed restraint." "I didn't want fame," Hana said. "I just wanted to live." "Sometimes that's not enough," Yuna replied. "Sometimes survival is a political act." The next day, Hana returned to classes. The corridors were different now. Some cadets avoided her completely, pressing themselves against walls as she passed. Others nodded with respect. A few even smiled. The academy was divided, and she was the dividing line. In tactical simulations, her suggestions were suddenly taken seriously. In combat training, she had more partners than she could handle. Some wanted to learn from the human who had defeated 4 attackers. Others wanted to test themselves against the Deathworlder, but there were also incidents. Anonymous messages increased. Someone vandalized her quarters with slurs. Groups of cadets would follow her at a distance, watching, waiting for her to make a mistake. A week after the tribunal, something unexpected happened. A group of cadets approached Hana in the cafeteria. They were from species she had barely interacted with, a methane-breathing Tholix named Nyx. Several others from low status or discriminated against species. "We wanted to thank you," Nyx said through his translation device. "You showed that outsiders can stand up to the established powers. Many of us face discrimination too. Maybe together we can change things." It was the beginning of something new. An alliance of the marginalized, the different, the feared. They started studying together, training together, supporting each other. Hana wasn't alone anymore, but the encrypted message haunted her. Someone out there, someone powerful, had threatened her. The 4 cadets had been pawns. The real enemy was still hidden, still planning. 2 weeks after the tribunal, news broke. The Galactic Academy Games were approaching. Every coalition military academy would send teams to compete. Earth was sending its first team, and Hana had been selected for the combat trials. The entire galaxy would be watching, and whoever had sent that message would be waiting for their next opportunity. The news that Hana would compete in the Galactic Academy Games spread like fire through dry grass. On Earth, the Global Assembly held emergency sessions debating whether to recall all human cadets for their safety. In the Coalition Senate, factions argued about whether humanity's membership should be suspended pending further review. What had started as one human defending herself had become a crisis that threatened the fragile peace between Earth and the wider galaxy. Ambassador Kai. Song arrived at Station Veritas on a fast diplomatic shuttle. Hana was summoned to meet him in a private conference room, where the older man studied her with eyes that had seen too much. He was 60 Earth years old, a former Marine who had been part of the first contact team 20 years ago. His face carried scars from those early days, when humanity was still figuring out that they weren't alone in the universe. "Cadet Hana," he said, his voice rough but kind. "You've caused quite a stir." "I didn't mean to, sir. I was just defending myself." Kai smiled sadly. The best revolutions often start that way. Someone refuses to be a victim, and suddenly the whole system has to change. He gestured for her to sit. "I've read the tribunal reports. I've watched the security footage. You showed remarkable restraint. Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me yet. You're about to become the most watched human in the galaxy. The games are in 3 weeks, and every species will be analyzing your every move. If you win, they'll say humans are too physically dominant and should be banned from competition. If you lose, they'll say we don't belong at the academy at all. You can't win this politically." Hana felt the weight settle on her shoulders again. "Then why have me compete?" "Because sometimes the only way forward is through." Earth isn't withdrawing from the coalition. We're not recalling our cadets. We're not apologizing for existing. If they want to prove humans don't belong, let them try. We'll prove them wrong through excellence, not violence. After the meeting, Hana returned to her quarters to find her message queue exploded with thousands of new contacts. News organizations wanted interviews. Political groups wanted her as a spokesperson. Scientists wanted to study her. And buried among the noise was a message from her family on Earth. Her mother's face appeared on the screen, recorded days ago due to the communication delay. Hannah, sweetheart, we've been watching the news. Everyone on Earth has been watching. We're so proud of you, and so worried. Please be safe. Remember that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just come home safe. Hannah watched the message 3 times before she could respond. She recorded her own message, keeping her voice steady. Mom, I'm okay. I'm going to compete in the games because someone has to show them we belong here. I love you. Tell Dad and everyone I'm fine. Training for the games intensified. Hana was joined by 4 other human cadets. Tay, who would compete in tactical operations. Yuna, who specialized in communication and negotiation scenarios. Jay, a brilliant engineer. And Hyan, whose navigation skills were already legendary among the human cadets. They trained together in specialized facilities, preparing for competitions designed to test every aspect of military capability. But the pressure was different now. Security followed them everywhere after 3 attempted attacks on human cadets in 1 week. Protesters gathered outside the academy, some supporting humanity, others demanding their expulsion. The media coverage was relentless. Every news cycle brought new analysis of the Deathworlder question. Medical experts debated whether humans should be classified as a combat species, which would restrict their roles in the coalition military. Political analysts predicted this would lead to Earth's isolation or even war. Cultural commentators argued about whether humanity's violent evolution made them incompatible with civilized society. Hana tried to ignore it, focusing on training. But one evening, Nyx approached her with disturbing news. The methane-breathing Tholex had become a close friend, one of the few non-humans who treated Hana like a person rather than a symbol. I've heard things, Nyx said through his translator. My species is also considered outsiders. We hear conversations that others don't notice. There's a group called the Preservation Front. They're planning something during the games. Planning what? They want to provoke a violent response from you or the other humans. If they can get footage of humans attacking protesters or losing control, it would give them the political ammunition to push for Earth's expulsion. Hannah felt cold anger building. So no matter what I do, I lose. Not if you're smarter than they are. Not if you refuse to play their game. Nyx's alien features were hard to read, but his voice carried determination. Many of us outsider species are tired of being told we don't belong. If humans can stand up to the established powers, maybe we can too. You're not alone in this. The next day, Instructor Velinara called Hana to her office. The crystalline being refracted the light nervously, a sign of agitation in her species. I've discovered something troubling. The investigation into Professor Dexuri has revealed connections to the Preservation Front. They've been operating within the coalition for years, working to prevent new species from gaining full membership. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what you're facing. This isn't about you specifically. It's about keeping power centralized among the founding species. Humans are just the latest threat to their control. Velinara paused. There will be protests during the games, possibly violence. Station security is preparing, but I wanted you to know. Hana started a video log that evening, something she had been thinking about for weeks. She set up her camera and began to speak, explaining human evolution, physiology, and culture to anyone who would listen. She talked about Earth's gravity, its dangerous wildlife, its history of conflict and cooperation. She explained why humans could run for hours when most species could barely sprint, why they healed from injuries that would be fatal to others, why their reflexes were so fast. "We're not monsters," she said to the camera. "We're survivors. Earth tried to kill us every day for millions of years, and we adapted. That didn't make us violent. It made us resilient. It made us human." She posted the video on the Academy's public network, expecting maybe a few hundred views. Within 24 hours, it had been watched 10 million times across the galaxy. Comments flooded in, thousands of them, from species Hana had never heard of. Many were hateful, calling her a liar or a propagandist. But others were different. "I'm from a high-gravity world, too," one comment read. "My species is also considered too strong for some roles. Thank you for explaining that strength doesn't equal violence. I never understood humans before," another said. "Now I see you're just people trying to survive like everyone else." The video went viral, shared across hundreds of worlds. News organizations analyzed it. Politicians debated it. And slowly, incrementally, public opinion began to shift. Not everywhere, not completely, but enough to matter. 2 days before leaving for the games, something unexpected happened. The 4 cadets who had attacked Hana sent a message from their home worlds. It was a public statement, broadcast across coalition networks. "We acted out of prejudice and fear," the statement read. "We believed the propaganda about Deathworlders being savage and violent. Cadet Hana Choi showed us we were wrong. She could have killed us. She could have caused permanent injury. Instead, she used exactly the force necessary to defend herself and no more. That is not savagery. That is discipline. We were wrong, and we apologize." The statement was clearly written under pressure from their families' legal teams, trying to reduce the criminal charges they faced. But it didn't matter. The admission that they had attacked first, that Hana had shown restraint, that their prejudice had been wrong, it all helped shift the narrative. On the day of departure for the games, Hana and the other human cadets boarded the transport ship. Hundreds of cadets from Station Veritas were going, representing dozens of species. The humans stayed together, aware of the stares and whispers. Commander Thalrex personally saw them off. "Compete with honor," he told Hana quietly. "Win or lose, represent your species well. That's all anyone can ask." The transport journey took 3 days. Hana spent the time training, studying her potential opponents, and trying to ignore the growing media frenzy. Every news outlet in the galaxy was covering the games, and the human participation was the top story everywhere. YUNA showed her the betting pools. "You're the favorite to win the combat trials. They think your Deathworlder advantages make it unfair. Great, so if I win, it proves nothing. If I lose, humanity looks weak." "No," Tay interjected, joining their conversation. "If you win with honor, you prove humans can compete fairly. If you lose with dignity, you prove humans can accept defeat gracefully. Either way, you prove we're more than our physical capabilities." The transport arrived at Sanctum Prime, a neutral world with adjustable gravity zones to accommodate all species. The games complex was massive, with arenas for dozens of different competition types. Thousands of cadets from 47 different academies across the coalition were gathering as the humans disembarked. They were met by a wall of protesters. Thousands of beings holding signs, chanting slogans. "Deathworlders go home." Some shouted, "Earth for Earthers." Others countered in support. Security formed a corridor, keeping the protesters back. Hana walked through the gauntlet with her head high, refusing to show fear or anger. This was the test before the test. Show weakness now, and it would haunt her in the arena. show aggression, and it would prove their worst fears. She made it to the athlete quarters without incident. But that night, lying in her assigned room, Hannah couldn't sleep. Tomorrow the games would begin. The entire galaxy would be watching. And somewhere out there, the preservation front was waiting for her to make a mistake. Her communicator buzzed with a message from Ambassador Kai. Remember, you're not just representing Earth. You're representing every species that's ever been told they don't belong. Every outsider who's ever been feared instead of understood. No pressure, but the future of galactic integration might depend on how you perform. Sleep well. Hannah laughed despite herself. No pressure indeed. She closed her eyes and tried to rest, knowing that tomorrow would change everything, one way or another. The opening ceremony of the Galactic Academy Games was a spectacle beyond anything Hannah had imagined. 47 academies marched into the central arena under the light of Sanctum Prime's twin suns. Billions watched across the galaxy as cadets from hundreds of species displayed their academy colors and symbols. When the Earth contingent entered, the crowd's reaction split down the middle, half cheering, half jeering. None indifferent. Hannah marched with Tay, Yuna, Jay, and Hyan, wearing Earth's blue and green colors. She kept her eyes forward, her posture military perfect, showing nothing of the nervousness churning inside. The weight of Earth's hopes pressed down harder than any gravity. The first 3 days featured team competitions. Yuna's tactical planning earned Earth a respectable fourth-place finish in the command scenarios. Jay's engineering solutions were innovative if unconventional, placing 6th. Hyan's navigation through a simulated asteroid field was textbook perfect, earning 3rd. Earth wasn't dominating, but they were competitive. That alone surprised many observers who had expected humans to either overwhelm everyone or fail completely. But everyone was waiting for Day 4, the individual combat trials. Hannah's event. The night before, Nix visited her quarters with intelligence from his network of outsider species. The Preservation Front is planning protests during your matches. They'll try to provoke you, get you to attack a civilian. If you do, it's over for Earth's membership. How do I fight someone and ignore protests at the same time? By being better than they expect. By being more controlled than any of them could be. Nix's translator carried warmth, despite the mechanical voice. You're not just fighting for Earth. You're fighting for all of us who've been told we're too different, too dangerous, too other. Commander Thalrex had traveled to Sanctum Prime as an observer. He called Hannah to a private meeting that night. Tomorrow, the galaxy watches you fight. I need you to understand something. You can win every match and still lose if you do it wrong. They're looking for savagery. Give them skill instead. Give them discipline. Give them something they can't dismiss as brute force. No pressure, Hannah said, echoing Ambassador Kai's words. Thalrex's expression might have been a smile. You've handled pressure before. 12 seconds in a dark corridor. Tomorrow, you'll have much more time to prove yourself. Day 4 arrived with perfect weather and massive crowds. The combat arena was a circular platform with adjustable gravity, atmosphere, and terrain. Matches were non-lethal, judged on strategy, technique, and adaptability. Each match had a 5-minute time limit. Incapacitation of your opponent meant victory. Hannah's first opponent was a Kreshtar warrior named Garmo, twice her size with armored hide that could stop small weapons. The crowd hushed as they entered the arena. Gravity was set to 0.8 G, a compromise between their home worlds. The match began. Gormal charged immediately, confident his size and strength would overwhelm the small human. Hannah didn't use her speed to dodge. Instead, she studied his movement, watched how his weight distributed, analyzed his attack pattern. For 2 minutes, she evaded, dodged, and retreated. The crowd grew restless. Commentators questioned her strategy. Then, at the 3-minute mark, Hannah moved. She didn't overpower Gormo. She redirected his charge, used his momentum against him, and applied a joint lock at exactly the right angle. The Kreshtar warrior tapped out, surprised but unhurt. The crowd's reaction was mixed: confusion, respect, disappointment from those hoping for violence. The post-match analysis focused on Hannah's technique. The human used precision over power, one commentator noted. This was not the brute force we expected from a Deathworlder. Match 2, against a zero-gravity specialist named Felix, showed different skills. The arena's gravity dropped to 0.2 g, Felix's preferred environment. Most species would struggle in low gravity. But humans, adaptable as always, could learn. Hannah had trained extensively in 0G. She didn't match Felix's natural grace in low gravity. Instead, she used physics, action and reaction, momentum conservation. She turned the environment into a weapon, using walls and surfaces to redirect her movement. The match lasted 4 minutes before Felix made a mistake and Hannah capitalized with a submission hold. The human is not dominating through physical superiority, another commentator observed. She's adapting to each opponent's strengths and finding tactical solutions. This is unexpected. By day 6, Hannah had advanced to the semifinals. Earth's other team members were performing well too, but all eyes were on the combat trials. The protests outside the arena had grown, but Hannah refused to acknowledge them. Inside the ring, she focused only on the opponent in front of her. Her semifinal opponent was Rakther, a 4th-year Korthan cadet from one of the most prestigious military families in the Coalition. He was skilled, experienced, and from the same species as Commander Thalrex. His family had been vocal about their opposition to human membership. The night before the match, Hannah received another encrypted message. Tomorrow you face more than one opponent. The Preservation Front will make their move. Stay focused. Protect yourself. She reported the message to security, but there was little they could do beyond increase patrols. The next day would reveal whatever plan was in motion. Day 7 arrived. The arena was packed beyond capacity. Billions watched via live broadcast. Hannah and Rakther entered the ring to thunderous noise, half the crowd supporting each fighter. Before the match could begin, alarms blared. Security announced a bomb threat. The arena began to evacuate. Panic spread through the crowds. This was it, Hannah realized. The Preservation Front's plan. Cause chaos, make it impossible for the games to continue. Prove that human participation brought violence and danger. Ambassador Kai Song stood in the VIP section and made an announcement that was broadcast across the galaxy. The games will continue. We do not let fear dictate our actions. We do not let terrorists win. If the arena must be secured, we will secure it. But Earth does not withdraw. We do not run. Security teams swept the arena. No bomb was found. It had been a hoax designed to create panic and force cancellation. Instead, it delayed the match by 2 hours and made everyone more determined to continue. When Hannah and Rakther finally faced each other, the tension was electric. The Korthan warrior bowed respectfully. Win or lose, this will be remembered, he said. Yes, Hannah agreed. Let's make it something worth remembering. The match began. Rakther was everything the report said. Skilled, powerful, tactical. His 4 arms gave him advantages in grappling that Hannah couldn't match directly. For 2 minutes, they circled each other, testing, probing, looking for openings. Rakther made the first real commitment, attempting to overwhelm Hannah with a multi-limbed grapple. This was the moment the galaxy was watching for. Would the human respond with the savage violence everyone feared? Would her Deathworlder instincts take over? Hannah could have ended it instantly. Her training on Earth had given her the strength and speed to break Rakthar's hold and deliver a devastating counterattack. She could feel the power in her muscles, the adrenaline singing in her blood, the ancient human response to threats urging her to fight, to dominate, to win. Instead, she did something no one expected. She yielded. She absorbed the impact of Rakthar's charge, redirected his momentum using techniques from Earth's Aikido and Judo. She turned his strength against him, using physics and technique instead of raw power. Rakther found himself flipped and pinned without a single violent strike being thrown. It was beautiful. It was efficient. It was completely non-violent, despite being a combat sport. The arena fell silent. Then a single person began to clap. Commander Thalrex, standing in the observer section, applauding slowly. Others joined. Within seconds, even those who had opposed humanity were on their feet, applauding the display of pure skill and restraint. Hana released the hold and helped Rakther to his feet. The Korthan warrior gripped her hand firmly. "You could have hurt me. Easily. Why didn't you?" Hana's response was picked up by every microphone in the arena, broadcast to billions of viewers across the galaxy. Because being strong isn't about how much damage you can do. It's about how much you choose not to. The crowd erupted. Not in violence or protest, but in genuine appreciation. This was not what they had expected from a Deathworlder. This was something new, something that challenged their assumptions about what strength meant. Hana won the final match the next day, using the same philosophy. Technical excellence, strategic thinking, and precise application of minimal force. When they placed the gold medal around her neck, she stood on the podium not as a monster, but as an athlete who had earned respect through skill and character. The aftermath of the games changed everything. Public opinion across the coalition shifted dramatically. Polls showed 67% now supported full human integration, up from less than 40% before the games. The Preservation Front's plans had backfired completely. Their attempt to paint humans as violent savages had instead shown the galaxy what humanity could be. Back at Station Veritas, Hana returned to the Academy as something different than when she left. Not just a cadet, but a symbol of what integration could achieve. Applications from human cadets tripled. Other species that had been considered too different began applying in record numbers. The corridor attacks stopped. The anonymous threats dwindled. Hana still sat alone sometimes in the cafeteria, but now it was by choice, not necessity. She had friends from a dozen species. She had allies who saw her as a person, not a category. In Instructor Valinara's tactical class. A new human cadet nervously took a seat beside Hana. The young woman looked terrified. Overwhelmed by the huge station and the alien species surrounding her. Hana smiled and leaned over. "Don't worry. It gets easier. Just be yourself. That's enough." The new cadet relaxed slightly. "Is it true you put 4 attackers down in 12 seconds? "It's true," Hana said. "But the important part isn't how fast I won. It's that I didn't hurt them more than necessary. That's what being strong really means." Commander Thalrex watched from the doorway and allowed himself a rare smile. When humanity had first applied for coalition membership, he had been skeptical. Deathworlders were unpredictable, potentially dangerous. But perhaps that was exactly what the coalition needed. Not danger, but the strength that came from surviving against impossible odds. Not violence, but the resilience born from facing a world that tried to kill you every day. Perhaps the Deathworlders would save them all. Not from external threats, but from their own fear of change, their own resistance to growth. That evening, Hana updated her video log for the last time. The series had been viewed over 1 billion times across the galaxy, changing minds and opening doors. "They call us Deathworlders, like it's a curse," she said to the camera. "But maybe it's a gift. We learned to survive on a world that tried to kill us every day. That didn't make us violent. It made us resilient. It made us creative. It made us human. We learned that real strength isn't about dominating others. It's about protecting them. It's about choosing restraint when you could choose destruction. It's about being better than your worst instincts. She paused, looking at the camera with eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. The galaxy was afraid of us. Maybe they still are, a little. But now they also see what we can be. Partners, friends, allies. We're not here to conquer. We're here to contribute. We're here to prove that different doesn't mean dangerous. And humanity? We're just getting started. She turned off the recording and looked at a photo on her desk. Earth from orbit, that beautiful blue marble that had forged humanity in its crucible of evolution. A world that was 70% water, with weather that could destroy cities, animals that could tear humans apart, and gravity that crushed visitors. A death world. Her home. And she had shown the galaxy that surviving a death world didn't make you a monster. It made you strong enough to choose kindness, tough enough to show mercy, powerful enough to build instead of destroy. Hannah smiled and headed out to meet Yuna, Tay, Nyx, and the growing circle of friends from across the galaxy. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, new opportunities to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. But tonight, she would celebrate with friends, eat food from a dozen worlds, and look forward to a future where Earth's children walked beside the children of hundreds of other worlds. Not as conquerors. Not as victims, just as equals. The stars belonged to everyone now. And Hannah Choi, the Deathworlder Cadet, who had shown the galaxy the true meaning of strength, was exactly where she belonged.